news, transfer news, match previews, legend interviews, Spurs winning, press conferences, covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. And I will say from the off, it was an unplanned Spurs Chat Podcast. I just messaged Craig and said, Craig, are you free for half an hour? Let's have a chat about Spurs. He said yes. So here we are. We are here to talk about everything Tottenham Hotspur, the transfer window, and of course, our huge game, England v Spain on Sunday evening, the Euro 2024 final. I'm sure every single one of us have everything crossed for England finally to lift that trophy. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. We are live on YouTube, we are live on Facebook, and we're also live on X. I've got very special guest and channel regular Craig Dearman back with me. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Yeah, looking forward to the final tomorrow. Been listening to... Yeah, I am. It's a weird sort of feeling, though. I think it's because I'm of a certain age, a little bit older than you, Chris. But you know, I've in the 90s. Like my mate said to me today, he said it just doesn't seem to be much hype around about this game. He said I can't get up for it. I said, look, I know exactly what you mean because I remember in Euro '96, you know, and the World Cups and all that. It was just something. There was a buzz, wasn't there? I mean, if we'd had this in '96, it would have been. What's changed? Why is there not that buzz? Because I know exactly what you mean. I completely agree. Do you know what? I was thinking about it today and be interested to see what other people think in the comments. But I think it is. There's an element of we've been pretty poor in this tournament. It's got better, and the performance against Holland, certainly the first half, was the best we've played in months. I think there's definitely an element of that people didn't expect us to get there. That we have played. I'm trying to be polite here, but perhaps not some of the top nations. So we've got lucky with the draw. So there's a certain expectation, isn't there? It's probably it's like, oh, we're England. You know, we're a lot better than them. I expect us to beat that nation, you know, and I think there's an element of that. I think there's also an element of the nation expects us to get to semi-finals and finals now because of the last 3 or 4 tournaments. Whereas in '96, obviously we hadn't qualified for '94 World Cup. We hadn't qualified for '92 Euros, I don't think. So we'd had 6-year gap. So '96 obviously being in the country. As well, that was a huge thing, and then France '98, of course, it was kind of built and built and built. But I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. If they'd been setting the world alight with their performances, I think we'd be more excited. I think probably if you ask a lot of people to be honest, they'd think Spain are going to turn us over tomorrow. I don't want to think that. The logic in here says it's like on one shoulder it's saying, no, Spain are going to beat us. There's no way you can beat that Spanish team. But then the other shoulder saying, look, it's one game. You know, we've been there with Tottenham. We probably didn't think we'd beat Man City in the Champions League or come back against Ajax. These things can happen. So it's a weird feeling, though, isn't it?
Yeah, anything can happen in football. You never ever know. Craig, we'll come back to talk about England shortly. Let's go on to Spurs because, of course, early today, 12 noon kickoff at Hotspur Way, the men's first team took on Cambridge United in a pre-season friendly. It was kind of like 2 matches, if you like, but if we said, you know, one game, because Ange Postecoglou completely changed the starting 11 at half time. Spurs were 5-0 up at half time, Johnson with a hat-trick and Heung-min Son with a brace. Cambridge then scored 2 in the second half, and Mikey Moore scored for Spurs in the second half and also an own goal. Good pressure from Timo Werner. Now, a number of players played in this game, a number of youngsters as well, even though I was at the under-21s game earlier today, 3 p.m. kickoff, where we won 3-2 against Enfield Town. a number of players were involved in this behind closed doors friendly. Manor Solomon was back playing in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt, which is great news for all of us Spurs fans. You know, it'd be nice to see him back at the start of the campaign. And Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall had their first minutes in a Spurs shirt. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this behind closed doors friendly, Craig. Are you a fan of it? Because some would say, well, if we played against, you know, the under-21s, would it have been much different?
To be honest, I can't see any harm in it. To be fair, it's all about getting minutes in the legs. You know, all right, we won convincingly, but you'd expect us to. Really, it's just all at this stage of the season. It's all about seeing patterns of play, getting the players fit. You know, players are coming back pre-season now. It's just getting minutes in the legs. Gives Ange a chance to look at some of the younger players. Great news that Mikey Moore scored. I don't think much can be read into anything about today's friendly. It was basically just a training ground match, wasn't it? So, you know, the real pre-season starts in less than a week, which is bizarre to think about with the Euros final Sunday. But you know, Wednesday we're kind of it all starts, doesn't it? I wouldn't say I can't see a problem with it. To be fair, Chris, like I say, it gets minutes in the players' legs. It's odd that there's been going to be so many this year, because last year there wasn't as much. But I think it's good for the players to have as many games as possible, as long as there's no injuries, of course. But it gives Ange a chance to look at different players, younger players, who plays well together. You know, Bergvall's got to settle in, so has Archie Gray. So there's loads of different dynamics going on, and obviously there's going to be players out the door, we would think, as well. So be interesting to see what players do get minutes when they go on the tour.
Interestingly, today, Craig, Archie Gray played at right back, and Lucas Bergvall played in that creative role. I know we've spoken a little bit about this before on the podcast with other guests as well, about Gray. You know, he played some games for Leeds United at right back last season. Would you expect that to be the cover for Pedro Porro? Because I know, you know, there's lots of speculation, there's lots going around at the moment. Emerson Royale has actually come out and said, I've spoken to Ange Postecoglou, and if I'm not going to be starting, you know, I want to be starting games, I want to be playing for my country, and if I'm not doing that, then I'm looking elsewhere. So it's pretty obvious. You know, without him actually coming out and saying the words, I am leaving, I think it's pretty obvious that he is going. AC Milan want to sign him, but Spurs are asking too much money, in the words of AC Milan. Borussia Dortmund are now interested in him as well. But would you expect Archie Gray to be a backup to Pedro Porro, or would you expect Spurs to go out and sign another right back?
I personally think for the amount of money that we're in for him for, paid for him for, should I say, I think he probably is going to be the backup to Royale, but I don't think Ange will just see him as that. I think he'll see him as cover also in the midfield. I mean, this kid's 18, you know, so he's got to be pretty special to be able to force his way into the first team. But as we've said many times, that central midfield position, nobody really grabbed it last year. You could argue Sarr had a pretty good season. I think that's fair. But I think those positions are up for grabs as well. So if he can play in both positions, which we know he can, I think that, you know, he's just got to go and grab it. It's there. It's nobody's position nailed down. So why not? But it is obvious as well that he's a good right back and he can be cover for Porro, but not just cover. I think he could, you know, he could push Porro, which is good for both players.
Yeah. Lucas Bergvall, excited to see him play, and let's hope that he gets a lot of minutes on Wednesday, because pre-season now, it feels like it's pretty much in full swing. You know, the first team have been in action today, the under-21s have been in action today as well, and of course we are next in action on Wednesday away at Hearts, and then followed by a friendly at QPR just a couple of days later. It's all happening.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I think, you know, as much as, you know, touched on the Euros earlier and about the lack of excitement with it, you know, it's still there. It's tomorrow, the finals tomorrow, and I think that's obviously in the back of everybody's mind. So that's kind of something that people are thinking about. But as soon as that final's over tomorrow, you're kind of into pre-season, and hopefully looking forward to the season starting. And with 6 friendlies or 5 friendlies, it's going to be a busy time. It's going to be a real busy time leading into August. Looking forward to the Bayern Munich friendly at the stadium as well. That's going to be interesting to see Dyer and Kane back at White Hart Lane. So yeah, it's all good. It's a busy time, and a busy time for you, jetting around and driving around again. It all starts again soon, doesn't it?
Here we go. There are 6 actually, Craig. Yeah, so we've got
6, yeah.
Hearts, QPR, then the one in Japan, 2 in South Korea, and then of course the one against Bayern Munich at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium the week before the Premier League season starts. Manor Solomon, Craig, how excited are you to see him back in a Spurs shirt? Because of course he signed for us. He played a handful of games, got that injury. It's nice to see him back. How excited are you by him? And it probably feel like a new signing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't remember the exact date he got injured. It might have been October last year, I think. I liked him. I liked the look of him when we played Burnley away. He was just something different on that left-hand side. He took players on, probably a bit of a nightmare to mark as well. He's quick. So hopefully he'll get back into it over the next few games and over the next week or so, get his fitness up, get his match sharpness up. I'll be really interested to see what he can do, because if it's a choice between him and Timo Werner on that left-hand side, or a battle, depending on obviously if Werner's going through the middle, or he could even play on the right. Could Solomon play on the right? Because obviously the left-hand side is generally where you want to see Sonny. It'll be really interesting to see if he can switch wings and even challenge Brennan Johnson perhaps on the right. And you obviously got the Kulusevski as well. So I just think it's great to have another attacking option. It's not to say that I don't want somebody else coming in, because I badly think we need a number 9 coming in there. But it's great to have another option on the wing there, assuming as well Brian Gill's going out this summer. Certainly somebody we need. We need more cover in those areas.
Craig, looking forward to that Hearts game in Scotland, in Edinburgh on Wednesday evening. Who's going to play at centre back? Because that's the area where he's pretty short right now.
I would imagine it will probably be Ben Davies and Ashley Phillips. I would imagine. Is Udogie back in full training now? I think he is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So you would imagine he'll play left back, right back. Obviously, Porro's there. So, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, look, Emerson Royale's still at the club. He could quite easily play centre back. We've seen him play there before, but you would imagine it's going to be Ashley Phillips, which is good for Ashley Phillips. You know, he can show Ange what he's all about, and you know, to be that fourth centre back, he's the answer to that. You know, people are saying we're looking at other centre backs, but the answer to that fourth centre back could be Ashley Phillips. If he impresses in pre-season, Ange will keep him at the club. So, you know, hope he hits the ground running and shows him what he's all about. Because I think, you know, Plymouth's young player of the season, and he was only there from January. I think that's, you know, it says something about him, doesn't it?
Also today, the Spurs under-21s were in action, winning 3-2 at the Queen Elizabeth II Stadium against Enfield Town. Elise put in Spurs 1-0 up, and then followed by a brace from Will Lancashire. Will Lancashire, of course, has just signed a new contract at the club until 2029. Was in superb form last season, and of course he has carried that through to the first pre-season friendly for the start of this season. Craig, were you surprised by how many youngsters were involved today in the behind closed doors friendly? Because I think I, a lot of other guests throughout the whole of last season were surprised that Ange didn't really put a number of the development players in the squad. But it appears at the moment all the targets seem to be young players, and all of the players seem to be you know, the youngsters, the development players. Do you think that a lot more of these guys are going to get game time? You know, to pick out a couple, Mikey Moore, who we've mentioned, scored one of the goals today. Hall involved, and he was involved in the post-season friendly against Newcastle in Australia. Gunter, Abbott, Jamie Donnelly even had a spell at left back today.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's good to see. I mean, it could be that we're short on players, and he's called a few of the development players up into squad, because obviously you've got the likes of Bentancur still away, Romero. So there's probably, well, I know there's a few that I'm missing off that list. Dragushin is still away. So, I mean, we haven't got many away, have we? Oddly enough, we haven't got tons. Obviously, Højbjerg is still away, but
yeah,
I think it's good that he's bringing in the youngsters. I mean, and this is an opportunity for the likes of the Lancashires and the Mikey Moores to show the manager what they're all about, to grab the ball by the horns, you know, and hopefully make him think that, look, you're going to have me in that squad. This is where I belong. This is where I belong in the first team. Love Will Lancashire and some of the academy boys. As you know, I've went and watched some under-21 games last year, and you get right into it. Was there at the final supporting them. Really good to watch. Some very, very talented lads in that squad. But now it's time to progress. I think a few of them are more than good enough to be in the first team squad. Some will undoubtedly go on loan. Who those will be, I don't know. But there is places in that squad for the development squad. And yeah, I love seeing us signing young, talented players, as long as it's not blocking that pathway from our development team to the first team, because that's what it's all about for me. I love that. The Harry Kanes and the Ollie Skips. I love seeing players come through the academy and make it into the first team. The ones of our own. You know, I love that. So the opportunity is there, and hopefully Ange will give them a few more run-outs at QPR and at Hearts.
That was my next question, particularly about Jamie Donnelly and Will Lancashire, who both of them were in fine form last season as the under-21s won the Premier League 2 title. With those two in particular, what's best for their development and what will they want for next season? Of course, they want game time, but if Ange Postecoglou is not going to give them regular game time, Craig, is it best for their development and for the club and for the player that they do go out on loan? Is that best for them?
Do you know what? You ask people this, and you'll undoubtedly get different answers, because I can see both sides of it. You know, I was thinking, if I was one of those lads, if I was a player, what would I want to be? I'm trying to take my Spurs hat off here, that I'm a Spurs fan. So if I was 18, 19 years old and I was in the Tottenham squad, it would be very difficult, or in that Tottenham setup, it would be very difficult, knowing how I am and how I feel about Spurs, to go on loan, because I just want to be around it 24/7. So, but I know Jamie Donnelly and his family are Tottenham fans, I believe. I don't know about
very much so. Yeah.
So it's obviously a conversation they've got to have. I can totally see the benefit in going and getting minutes other places. Look at Harry Kane, Ollie Skip. The fair few of our players have got out on loan, come back and smashed it. So I can't see a problem. I think this is something that Ange will sit down with these boys and say, you know, the question's going to be asked, am I going to get me minutes this season? Am I going to get a few more minutes? And, you know, we've got the Europa League, hopefully go a fair way in the domestic cups as well. So you would hope there'd be chances for them. So, and I guess it's a balance in that. You know, does he keep them around the first half of the season and then let them go on loan in January? That might be an option. But the boys are going to have to make their own decisions about what they want to do. Personally, I don't think a loan's a bad thing, as long as you get the right club where you almost guaranteed minutes, because we've seen players go on loan before and it hasn't worked out. Like Valise, obviously, what was the point of that loan last year? It was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it? So, look, it can happen, but it's something I think can only be, unless the likes of, which I know will come on to Troy Parrott, unless it's something like that where it's clearly not in the plans. I know Lancashire and Donnelly hopefully are, because I think they're brilliant footballers. Then it's perhaps something that's going to have to be discussed a bit later on in the window. What
do you think will happen with Dane Scarlett?
Difficult one. He's had some difficult loans, hasn't he? I think Ange will keep him around, and again, just hopefully have a look at him. You know, give him a decent amount of minutes so the boy can actually show him what he's all about. And then they made the decision. I think they'll probably at the worst loan Scarlett. I don't think they'll sell him, but perhaps Dane could do with a really good loan next season. You know, what is he, 21, 20 years old? Still very young. So I think that would be a good option for him, but it's got to be the right loan for Dane.
Craig, it was announced Saturday morning that Troy Parrott has left the football club for Dutch club AZ Alkmaar. Troy Parrott went on social media and said thank you to the Spurs fans. He said, after an amazing 7 years of memories and experiences, it's time for me to take the next step in my career. I wanted to come on here to express my gratitude to the incredible players and staff members I've worked with. I've made friends for life. Finally, a massive thank you to you, the fans, that have continued to support me through my journey. Spurs will always be in my heart. Of course, he had a great season for Excelsior in the Dutch league last season. Are you sad to see Troy Parrott go? Because I know on the podcast before, some of us have said that perhaps, it would be good for him to get an opportunity. When he's gone away, scored a hatful of goals, could he have been a decent backup striker? Or does a player that, I know we've spoken about this as well, that when a player goes on loan, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because they're so used to playing. And when they come back to Spurs, do they want to be a backup? Perhaps they don't want to be a backup. So perhaps that's why he sees this for his development and for his future as a better move.
Yeah, it's hard because I did like Troy as a player. We didn't see tons of him, like you say, but he had a good end to the season last year. Scored a fair few goals, obviously at a different standard, but he didn't really get the opportunities at Tottenham. I think Mourinho bring him on in a game. Didn't he? Yeah. Didn't he take a penalty? Was it Colchester? And he, sadly missed a penalty, didn't he?
Yeah.
So look, he didn't have the best of luck. I know he had an injury towards the end of the season as well, but perhaps my gut is telling me it's probably the best thing for him to move on. I just don't think he was ever going to get the minutes at Tottenham. Sad to see him go because I think there's real potential there, but it was probably the right thing for the player, to be honest. And look, I hope he smashes it wherever he ends up later on in his career or what he chooses to do, because I think there is a talented player there. It's just I could never see him making it at Tottenham, sadly.
Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that it was an €8 million package fee, add-ons included. His contract is until June 2029. So, of course, wishing him all of the very best. Craig, Fabrizio Romano has also stated that Sergio Reguilon will be leaving Tottenham this summer, and he says for sure. How many times have we said this about these types of players? And I tell you what, I remember doing a couple of live shows with a couple of journalists a couple of years ago, and I asked the question. I went through player by player saying, who will be on the plane to South Korea? Well, of course, we're going to South Korea again. Will players like Sergio Reguilon be on the plane? Will Lo Celso be on the plane? Will a lot of these fringe players, even now Emerson Royale we can put, is he going to be on the plane? Who's going to be on that plane?
Well, of course, Reguilon wasn't on the plane last year and moved on, didn't he? So it was quite clear he wasn't in the plane.
But then last year, under Ange, he was on that plane to Australia and he played in Australia.
That's mental. It's bizarre. What confuses me about Reguilon, I was really excited when he came in the summer. We got Bale, and that was the kind of double deal that was announced on the same day. Yeah. I was really excited to see Reguilon. It's a shame because I still think there's a player in there, Reguilon. And I would have loved to have seen him get a decent run under Ange, but Ange has obviously seen enough of him to make him think that he's not what he needs or what he wants at left back. So it's a shame. But look, if these players are not in the plans, as we've said many times more than once, then they don't need to be on the tour. What is the point in taking players that are not in the plans and not going to play any minutes? What is the point in taking them halfway around the world? So he needs to get his move. Wish him well. I like the lad, but he's obviously not got a future at Tottenham. So, and that would probably be the same as Royale as well. It's clear he wants to go. So what is the point in even playing him at the moment? unless we've literally got nobody else to play at centre-back. That's not saying Emerson Royale is the worst player I've ever seen. We don't want to see him in the Spurs shirt again. I know he's had a fair bit of stick, but he's clearly loves the club, doesn't he? And I like that in a player. He's never been quite good enough at Tottenham, but he's certainly, you can never accuse Emerson Royale of not trying. So wherever he ends up, I wish him well. But what is the point in taking these players to friendlies, away on tours, if they're not going to play?
Craig, Fabrizio Romano stated about Desiree Doué the other day, and it's been widely reported that Bayern Munich have placed a 35 million euro bid for the Rennes star. Rennes apparently want at least 60 million euros, but the Rennes sporting director has also come out and said that the player does not want to leave in this summer transfer window. Of course, he is one of the Europe's finest young talents around at the moment. Would you be disappointed if Spurs didn't go all out to sign someone like him? And I must say that when I went to Enfield earlier, the amount of Spurs fans that come up to me and said, Chris, love the channel, so thank you so much for all of the feedback. But the next question was, aren't you worried about the signings? Spurs don't seem to be getting much done. And my instant response was, well, I expect it to, speed up a little bit after the Euros in terms of incomings and departures. Is that how you're feeling? Are you quite calm about the transfer window at the moment? And do you think Angie's?
I would think Angie's. I think there's probably more going on behind the scenes than we realise. And I would just say to everyone, the way I'm feeling, I'm feeling quite calm about it. I would say don't panic about it. I think this Euros is having a massive effect and knock-on effect on a lot of deals at the moment. I know it's coming to an end tomorrow, but players are still away, on their 2 or 3 week breaks. I think you'll see a lot happening over the next couple of weeks. I really do. Look, it's not just us. Only one club, I believe, made a big signing, or it's about to go through the Nashville Anana. So, not many other teams have made big signings. You see on Sky Sports News. Not much is moving at the moment, but I think you will see it over the next couple of weeks. I really do. I think they've got their plans in place, and things just can't move at the moment for one reason or another.
Is it because is it people panicking, Craig, because they're seeing teams like Aston Villa, who of course just finished just above us, going out and getting a real statement signing in Onana from Everton, and deals like that? Because some of these teams are getting deals done. We know that Ange Postecoglou wants signings in as soon as possible, early deals, and then of course, as we've already mentioned, the Hearts game is on Wednesday, the QPR game is on Saturday, and then that following week Spurs travel to Japan and South Korea. So you would think that Ange Postecoglou and all of the coaching staff would want the new blood on that plane to Japan.
Yeah, you would hope so. But as Jim said there, we've made 2 huge signings. We don't need a huge number of players, just some top flight players. That's dead right. Ange will not want just any player just for the sake of signings. He said that. He's got specific targets. And if we have to wait to get those targets, then we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to be patient. Like you, though, Chris, I want to see at least 2 signings, new signings, on top of what we've already got on that plane to Korea. And I think there's going to be more than enough time before they go to get that done. They will have these deals almost ready to kick into action. I don't know if everybody else has noticed, and I think we touched on it in an earlier podcast. Do you think that Tottenham are being a lot more cagey and a lot more quiet about these transfers? They're trying to keep a lot more under wraps. So just because you're not hearing about it doesn't mean to say the things are not going on in the background. And I think that's the right way to do business. We've said before, in the 80s, you heard about it when you turned CFAX on, or you had to ring that line you was talking about, the Tottenham hotline. I got in trouble with my granddad for ringing that. He used to say, "What's this bloody number on the phone bill?" It's me ringing Tottenham. listening to the transfer news when you didn't have all the internet and all that. So I think we just need to be calm. I think they know what they're doing. They know what targets they've got. And I just think they're trying to keep a lot of it under wraps because they don't want to get gazumped. We've been there. We've done that. So my message to everybody, for what it's worth, would be stay calm. They know what they're doing.
Do you know that I remember that very, very well? My mum and dad always said, what numbers are these? And I said, nothing to do with me.
It'd be less embarrassing if it was a porn line, wouldn't it? It said, I'm ringing Tottenham. Oh my God!
It was about a 2 or 3 minute intro, and they used to go through every game, and it's like, no, I just want to hear the news. I just want to hear the transfer news. Who are we signing? What's happening? Craig, Fabrizio Romano has also stated that Tottenham want to bring in one more attacker. There is interest in Desiree Doué from several clubs, Bayern Munich and PSG. So it isn't an easy race for Desiree Doué, but Tottenham have had some contact with his agents. Now, when I posted this comment on social media, a lot of responses were quite negative, saying, one more attacker? Are you joking? One more attacker? I know we've spoken at length about the transfer window, and of course we will do until the very end of the window. But if Fabrizio Romano is right, one more attacker, that isn't enough, is it?
No, but Fabrizio Romano, he's right about a lot of things, but he does get the odd thing wrong. So I would hope that we're in for at least two. But certainly the priority for me, as I've said for weeks and weeks and weeks, is a number 9. We've got to get a proper number 9 through the door. Now, whether that's going to be to challenge Richarlison, somebody you've seen as more of a first choice over Richarlison, but if Richie's staying, I think regardless, we need another centre forward. So I would be happy if we got top class.
Who's realistic?
And then that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Because number 9s, world-class number 9s, is kind of going out of fashion in the game. But the players we've been linked with so far, like that Doué, I think he's a cracking player. And whether it was the agent or the club said he don't want to move this year, well, that's a load of rubbish. If he don't want to move, then he's not for sale, is he? He clearly is for sale for the right price. But these clubs and agents do that all the time, don't they? It's a really tough market to get a centre forward. I totally get that. And the specific type of centre forward that Angie's going to want. And it's gone quite quiet, hasn't it? With Eze, with obviously Doué. He said we're not going to be putting in a bid. So there is work to be done there. But like I say, I still think there's going to be something come out in the next week or so. Players, that Santiago Jimenez, that was mentioned. That all went quiet for a couple of weeks ago. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? What do you think, Chris? Do you think one more attacking signing is realistic? Is that what we can expect, or do you think they're going to get 2? Tough one, isn't it?
Well, I just hope that we get everything that we need. I know Andrew's still building it. We are still going through this huge rebuild, but I think that definitely competition for Richarlison. I still think there's question marks whether he's going to be at the football club for the whole of next season. So I want Spurs to go out and sign, some good experienced players. And I've said this on the podcast before, that it's all well and good planning for the future, but you also need players for now, experienced players that are going to come in. I know you've got like the spine of the team, Romero, Maddison, Heung-min Son. You've got good experienced players in there, but you need to add 1 or 2 more, 100%. I know we've spoken at length about Eze. We'd all love to see him in a Spurs shirt. That's going to be an interesting one. Realistically, do you think that Crystal Palace? And I know a lot of people just say, well, just pay the £60 million release clause plus the add-ons and he's your man. Spurs don't really do that. Spurs want to stagger deals and do deals in a different way to most others. And I know there's interest from Manchester City for Eze as well. But Crystal Palace, I don't think there's any doubt, Craig, that Crystal Palace will not want to lose Elise and Eze in that same window. And I've said this before on the podcast as well, that the manager there, Oliver Glasner, done a fantastic job at the end of last season, and I think that he wants to build something special there.
I think you're right. I think he does, but ultimately, who's the guy that owns Palace? Steve, I can't remember his name.
Steve
the
Parish.
owner, he was on Steve Parish. That's it. I saw him do an interview for, I think it was with Gary Neville on the Overlap. Wasn't that long ago, and I think in that he basically said, "Look, we know what Palace are. We know we've got a certain ceiling, but we are a selling club." Basically, is what he's saying in a roundabout sort of way. So, as much as they obviously don't want to lose these top players, they know eventually these players are going to move on, and that is their business model. So, as much as they probably want to keep Eze, I think if the price is right, like any player, every player's got their price. As long as it's not a ridiculously silly price. And if we want Eze, then we are going to have to probably pay the money. But like you say, Spurs don't do that a lot of the time, but that's what's got to change, you know. I'd love to see Eze. I've banged the drum about him for ages. But going back to the centre forwards, Ivan Toney, would I take Ivan Toney? I probably would now, because he'd be a real focal figurehead. And I think he's gettable, to be honest. But again, it's all quiet because of the Euros. You're not seeing much. You're talking about Eze and you're talking about Toney. They're both, in a final tomorrow. So it's going to be quiet. They're not going to want anything. There'll be nothing about them if they're in the pipeline for 2 or 3 days at least, regardless of what the result is tomorrow.
Would you be surprised if Spurs went out and signed someone like Eze and paid that money as one lump sum, Craig, and actually broke our transfer record fee? Of course, it is Tanguy Ndombele. If Spurs broke that, would you be surprised this window, or are you almost expecting it? Because the conversations that I had today, a couple of the guys turned around and said, well, we've been in the stadium for over 5 years now, and the money generated from the concerts and all of the other events, you'd have seen Travis Scott there, everyone going mad on the pitch, and these concerts, the rugby, the boxing, all of these different events, all of that money being ploughed back into the club. Would you now expect that money to go back and pay for players, pay for top quality players that we all want to see?
Well, that's what we're told, that the money does get absorbed into that first team budget, that it's going to be spent on the first team. That's all we ask as fans, that we want to see that money being spent and being spent wisely. It would surprise me if we was just go, yeah, there you go, bang, there's 60 million. Because I don't think you'll find many transfers are actually done like that, as much as we all want to say, just pay the monay,
Yeah, not anymore.
Rare that happens. So Spurs will want to stagger any deal. They might pay a fairly large lump sum up front, whether that be 40 million, 45 million or whatever, and then in certain bonus payments. But look, if Eze is the top target, like we're led to believe, or one of the top targets, then they've got to get that one over the line. They've got to get that done, because, like we say, it's not like when Fabio Paratici used to have 10 plates spinning at once. So it doesn't seem like that works for Ange. He's got very, very specific targets, and he says so. His list will be 6-7 players long, probably, perhaps a few more. He won't be having a list of about 20 players. It'll be a very small list, and he'll just say, look, those are the players I want. If you can't get them, I don't want anyone. Which seems bizarre, because all we want is players in, but they've got to be the right ones, like I say, for Ange, I think.
Craig, we'll come on to talk about England in a second, but just wanted to ask you one more question, particularly on Eze and Toney. When they have been playing at Euro 2024 in Germany, of course, the interest will widen. The price will probably go up a little bit more. Brentford have already said that Ivan Toney will be going in this window because, of course, he's only got that year left on his contract and they want to cash in on him. There's going to be a lot of interest in these top quality players.
There is. In a funny sort of way, neither Eze or Toney have had enough minutes to almost garner interest from a load of clubs. Obviously Premiership clubs will have seen them week in, week out, and they know what they're capable of. And Toney's obviously had a big impact in a game, and obviously around the world with his no-look penalties, so people will see that. But he's not going to be going abroad, I don't think, and nor is Eze. So it's just the Premiership, and we see him week in, week out. So I'm not that bothered. And from what I'd read, City had almost said no, they're not interested in Eze. No, they've dropped out of the race. So the only ones, as far as I was aware, that was in it was Tottenham. So the only thing that would change is whether Palace put the fee up, because there seems to be conflicting stories about how much his release fee is. So whether discussions have been going on behind the scenes with agents and stuff while Eze's been away, possibly. But again, like I say, we won't necessarily hear about it. And the reporters and Fabrizio Romanos of the world might not have heard about it because they're just trying to keep things a bit more under wraps. So that's why it comes back to me what I was saying earlier. I'm not that worried. Look, I want signings through the door. Of course I do. But I'm not that concerned at the moment. If it gets to pre-season, Chris, and we've got nobody in and nobody's gone out, then I might start to worry a little bit more. But at the moment, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think I will get to the worrying stage when we're going on that plane to Japan, because that's when I think that Ange Postecoglou will want his players in for pre-season to go to Japan and South Korea. So the Hearts game and the QPR game, fair enough, he'll make do and just use the squad that he's got at the moment. But any new signings, I would expect to be on that plane for pre-season, because that's where it's all going to happen. And that's where it normally does all happen. Craig, hopefully we'll be doing a lot more of these podcasts talking about players coming in the door and players going out the door. We expect a lot to happen. Let's talk about the England game, because, of course, Sunday evening in Berlin, 8 p.m. kickoff, 9 p.m. Kickoff local time in Germany. Gareth Southgate in his press conference just now has said, "I'm not a believer in fairy tales, but I am a believer in dreams." Now, have you dreamt about this game? How do you see it going? Because, at the start of the show, you said to me about Euro 96. I remember it extremely well. The country was, everybody was fully behind the nation. That was one of my best tournaments that I've watched, actually, as far as I actually felt as an England fan. And I thought at the time we were going to go all of the way. 3 years ago, I was very lucky enough to be at the final, England v Italy. Of course, I saw us go 1-0 up. I thought, I'm finally going to see England lift a trophy in my lifetime. Of course, it didn't happen. It went to penalties. We lost. 3 years later, we're here again. Can England do it? Will they do it? Is it coming home?
Wow. Don't put too much pressure on me. What was interesting, you're dead right about Euro 96. I was 23 and I was in my prime, drinking wise and everything, and we had a pub local to us where all my mates went, and wives, girlfriends, just everybody used to go down this one pub. It was proper locals local. It was a bit like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. You could walk in there at any time of day. It was a proper local pub, and they had a big screen. And
everyone knows your name these days.
Well, not everybody, but yeah, probably a few Spurs fans. But we all used to meet down there. Everybody was there, and we all watched it together, celebrated, commiserated together, and it was just the best of times from 96 through to 2006, that period. And obviously after 96, that hope, those dreams built, because after 96 and the letdown, I mean, when you watch it, every time that cross comes across from Alan Shearer, Gazza's toenail, if he was wearing a size 12, it would have been in that final, because I think that was golden goal, wasn't it, back then? So that we'd have won the game. So you've had so much hurt, so much heartache, and this belief going in, after that, you had the Beckhams, the Gerrards, and the Rio Ferdinands, and all that, the golden generation, and they never performed. And like you say, coming into more recent history, the World Cup in 2018, the last Euros, and now in another final. I think the country certainly believed we was going to win, like you say, the Euros in what was 2021. It was it did feel like football was coming home, and this time it just feels a bit different for me. That's not to say that I don't believe. I just think it would almost be the best turnaround in the tournament if we manage to somehow beat Spain tomorrow. And I don't care how we beat Spain, by the way. I don't care if it goes to penalties and we beat Spain. I'd rather not penalties, by the way. Please don't take it to penalties. My heart can't take it. But considering how we started and considering how England have played since the turn of the year, because we've been dreadful, really. When you look at that squad, the players in that squad, I think you'd have to wait a good few years before you see another squad like this. So they've got a chance tomorrow to make history. And I just hope that they learn the lessons from 2021 and the World Cups and everything else. Is it about our time that we had that little bit of luck to get over the line? Because we've had our fair share this tournament, but let's hope that luck hasn't run out. So you asked me if football's coming home. I'm going to say yes, because I said to you at the podcast, as I said, the chat we did at the TalkSport thing, you asked me who's going to win it, and I said England, and you looked at me and was like, really? And I said, yeah. I've had a feeling for 2-3 months that England are going to win this tournament, and you said it's going to be an England-Spain final.
Yeah.
So let's hope. Well, your bit's right. Let's hope my bit's right.
Yeah, I didn't give a winner though, Craig, did I? I said it would be an England-Spain final, and I left it at that.
Yeah, Mr. Switzerland. Yeah.
Everybody I've spoken to though, everyone seems to be very confident about this game against Spain on Sunday, and I haven't had one person say to me, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this game, obviously, which we all have. Not one person has said that they think Spain will win. When you look at their record in this tournament and you look at their performances, they have definitely been the standout team. They've won 6 out of 6. Yamal, who of course has only just turned 17, what a talent he is. Of course, you've got Nico Williams as well. And it's funny, at the start of the season, Spurs played Barcelona in a friendly, which I went to, and this youngster come on, and I said to my son Harry, I said, who's this youngster coming on? He went, he's Yamal. He said he's absolutely brilliant. And I tell you what, he weaved in and out of our defence, causing us all sorts of problems. And of course, he's now playing in the Euros, which is just unbelievable. To imagine that, Craig, 17 years old, just turned 17, and you'll be playing in a Euro final. That is just unbelievable. But what have you made of Spain in the tournament? Because I've said throughout the whole thing, and I was very lucky enough to go to a couple of Spain games in the group stages, and I said then, this is the team to beat.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to deny that they are the favourites going into this final tomorrow. I've been impressed with them. They weren't actually highly fancied, especially by the Spanish people. The Spanish press and people thought, this team is good, but they're probably, they would have been content with the quarterfinal and ecstatic with the semi. And of course, they're now in a final. So they didn't have any expectations coming into this tournament. They were in with the likes of Portugal, I would say, and Germany was more of a favourite along with England. So they had England, Germany, and probably France. So they were kind of in the next tier, but obviously they've actually probably overperformed from what people think, because they're not the Spain from that brilliant era they had where they won 2 Euros and a World Cup sandwiched in between. They dropped off, didn't they? When certain players retired and moved on, it's taken them a long time to rebuild. But now you've got like Williams, like you say, and Yamal. Looks like a good few years they're going to have a fantastic attacking line. Obviously, I've never personally rated Morata that much, especially when he was at Chelsea. Perhaps I'm tinged. I still can't believe that Spain haven't got a better centre forward than Morata, but he seems to play in most of their games. So look, they're going to be a tough.
Certain players, Craig, they seem to just turn it on for their country, though, don't they?
They do. Yeah,
he's one of them.
I mean, Jordan Pickford. I know he gets a lot of stick, but for me, he's never let England down really. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper for England. Everton probably, is what it is, but he's. I think he's been really good this tournament. Mad as a March out, crazy as a box of frogs or whatever the saying is. But you've got to be like that, be a goalkeeper. My son's a goalie and he's mental. So I think it just goes hand in glove with being a keeper, if pardon the pun. So I think that we can get at Spain's defence, however. Although they've won every game, it's their attack and midfield is brilliant. But I think we can get their defence. And I think, look, our forward line have got to be at it tomorrow. What I don't want to see happen, and what has frustrated the hell out of me, is Harry Kane's positioning. Now, obviously, he's being told to do that, or is he? I don't know. But he seems to get, as I've said before, I played centre forward. No way near, the standard of that. But I said to my friend today, I said, look, if I was dropping as deep as Harry Kane on Saturday afternoon football, what would you be saying to me? And he said, I've been telling you to F off up the top of the pitch into your own position. He gets in the way, in my opinion, of Bellingham and Foden. He's dropping into those holes. There's no out ball. You see how deep he's playing. I want to see him 20 yards further up the pitch. And you saw that when Ollie Watkins came on, how the game changed. Somebody running in behind, somebody with pace. It occupied the centre forwards who'd had nothing to do all night. Now, I'm not saying drop Harry Kane. Not saying that at all. I just want to see him a bit further up the pitch, And I think that occupy that Spanish defence. Let our wingers run it. Let Saka run it in one side. Let Foden go the other, or Palmer, whoever's playing down there. Keep them occupied. I think if we get a goal ahead against Spain, I just hope we don't sit back then, of course, and try and see the game out. But you'd hope they've learnt from that against Italy. So, look, fingers crossed. Massive game. I can't take another defeat. I don't think we all can we?
I tell you, it's such an interesting point about Harry Kane, because I remember one of the last tournaments, Antonio Conte, before he was Spurs manager, he was a pundit, and someone asked him about Harry Kane's positioning, and he actually come out and said, if I was managing Harry Kane, I'd make sure that he would be in the box all the time, in the 6-yard box, to put the ball in the back of the net. And of course, he came to manage Spurs, and he was still dropping deep all the time. Just imagine Harry Kane's goal-scoring record, Craig, which is absolutely outstanding. The amount of golden boots, etc., that he's got. But imagine what it would be if he was one of those players who just stood around the 6-yard box just for those tap-ins. It'd be incredible.
It would be. The likes of Lineker, you're talking about, that sort of player.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a cross Saka put in one of the games. Can't remember who against.
And no one there.
It was a beautiful run, and he crossed it. And I just remember saying to my son, I said, that's where our number 9 should be. Where is he? And he's strolling into the box. And I'm thinking, it frustrates the hell out of you, because you think Saka's done everything right there. He's put it into that area. And like you say, he's got to tap in. I'm not saying Harry Kane doesn't do some brilliant work when he's back there, but I'm just saying that's where he needs to be. He needs to be further up the pitch, because like you say, he'd score so many more goals. And it's not like when he was at Tottenham doing that playmaker role, we didn't have the playmaker because we'd sold him or we'd let him go, like the Eriksen. We'd never replaced Eriksen. We've been over and over this.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do that job. He's got Bellingham. He's got Foden. You know what I mean? He doesn't need to do that job. Stay up the pitch, score the bloody goals, and win us the cup. It's just simple as that for me. I'm sure it's not as simple as that, but I can see it. So, and most people, other people can, surely.
Craig, just a couple of hours ago, Harry Kane had the press conference along with Gareth Southgate, and he was asked the question, would you swap all of your goal-scoring trophies to win the Euros? And he said, for sure, yeah. What an opportunity it is for Harry Kane to finally put a trophy in the cabinet, because he hasn't got one yet, no matter what team he's played for, Spurs, Bayern Munich, England. But what I wanted to ask you is that Ollie Watkins, what a fantastic goal it was the other night against the Netherlands. How does Gareth Southgate play this one? Because if you are Ollie Watkins, you've just come on, you've played 10 minutes of Euro 2024 football, you've taken your opportunity just like that. What does he do? He's going to be back on the bench, surely.
He will be. Yeah, I think he will be. And just going back to Harry Kane for a second, he's actually joint top scorer at the moment, isn't he? So if he gets one more goal, he gets a golden boot, which is incredible when you think about it. Look, Ollie Watkins, I think, is a fantastic option to have off the bench, regardless of what position the game is in, whether we're losing, whether we're winning, drawing, whatever. Bring him on with his pace when the Spanish defence are tiring. I'd like to see him on a little bit earlier than you put him on Wednesday, I must be honest.
Yeah.
But I think he's just one of those players like Solskjaer used to come on for United, you know. I'm not saying he wouldn't do it from the start, but I want to see Harry Kane. He's the captain. I want to see him at the start. And if you need to, bring Harry Kane off and bring Watkins on. I just think that is the right thing to do. You saw what difference he made on Wednesday. So look, if he can come on 70 minutes and do exactly the same thing and win us the cup, then he'll have a trophy outside bloody Wembley made of him, I think. So yeah, let's hope, let's hope luck's on our side.
Craig, last question for you. Where do you see the weakness in either team? Where's this game going to be won and lost? Because I tell you what, you know, if you were to ask me for a score prediction, I actually think this is going to go to penalties. I think it's going to go all the way. I think that both teams will desperately want this. I think that the second half, perhaps both teams won't be risky. I don't think we've really seen a risky England in a second half during this tournament anyway. Of course, when we've needed to go for it, you know, like the Slovakia game right at the end and Netherlands game, he made those changes. But I think it's going to go all the way to the end. But I do have confidence in the penalty takers, which perhaps a lot of us England fans haven't felt that confidence before in the penalty takers, particularly after that Switzerland game. But any weaknesses for you? Can you point out any weaknesses in either side?
Like I say, I think Spain's defence, you can get at them. I think you can get at them. I really want to see them challenged, though, in ways they haven't been challenged so far. I think the midfield does a great job at protecting the Spanish defence. But I also think the Spanish keeper hasn't really been tested. I think that could be an option they'll have looked at. As regards us, I think there is a weakness on the left when you play Trippier there. I think Trippier is a fantastic player, but he's not a left back. And I do think Shaw gives us a bit more balance there. So I would hope Luke Shaw's fit enough to start, and I'd like to see him start if he's fit enough. So, look, I think England are pretty strong all over the pitch, to be honest. Kyle Walker is, look, he can make a clanger like everybody else, but if we hadn't had his pace, he sprinted. There is nobody else in the country that would have made that tackle that he made on Wednesday. And I think he's had a pretty good tournament all in all. So for me, England's weakness is the fact they just don't utilise their players like they do at club level. I just want to see them attacking like they do for their clubs. So that's the only the weakness is not exploiting what you're good at. That's what I would say about England.
Well, Craig, before I get your score prediction, it has been stated by a number of outlets that the trophy parade, if England win, will be on Tuesday. If England win, will you be there at Trafalgar Square, Buckingham Palace?
I'm not even going to think about it. I'm really not. I'm really not. I would love to be. I think half the country would like to be there, but I'm not even going to think about it. Look, wouldn't it be marvellous? You know.
When I saw those reports, I was like, "Oh no! Don't put it out publicly. Don't jinx it. Just say nothing. Just say nothing until Sunday evening."
The thing is, the police and everybody else, they have to plan for these things. You know, and they will do it for every major. I'm sure Tottenham had one planned for the Champions League final. In fact, I know.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You know, and it's do you know it's everything, the planning that goes into these things. I probably don't need to tell you the teaching to suck eggs, but it's the policing of it. It's hiring the barriers. It's hiring the portable toilets. It's you know, the flags and everything else, and all the pomp and the bloody buses and the signage and everything. That will all have been made. That will all be sitting in a warehouse or in garages somewhere, ready to pull out on Tuesday. and you'll never see it, obviously, if the result doesn't go the right way on tomorrow night. So it's crazy to think about that, but it's all in place already. So let's hope they get to use it.
Right, Craig, the big question. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. It goes to extra time. It still finishes in 1-1, and then England win 6-5 on penalties. What are you going for?
I'm aligned with you that I think it could easily go to penalties. It's either going to be 1 in 90 minutes or it's going to go all the way. I don't think you'll get somebody winning extra time. I just don't. I think both sides won't want to lose it. You'll be trying not to lose it because, as you say, that's the way it's gone. So I'm going to say 2-2, and it will go penalties, and England will win on penalties 5-4. I think Pickford will save one. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope we win it easily in 90 minutes.
Well, as long as we're both right that England win it, I tell you what, it will be a great part of history because, of course, none of us have seen England win a trophy at all in our lifetime, which is just an unbelievable stat, especially when you touched on earlier, the amount of fantastic footballers that England as a nation have had in our lifetime, and we haven't quite got over that line, but. Craig, enjoy the game on Sunday evening. I certainly will. Thank you so much for doing this podcast this evening. I know it wasn't planned, but you and I can talk about Spurs and England all night long. Where can people find you, Craig, on social media, and what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, at Dearman9 on X. Not up to much. Just looking forward to the game. Try and kill a few hours tomorrow, and just settle down and hopefully try and enjoy the game tomorrow. And you said this was going to be half hour, and it's been 1 hour, 1 minute. So, that's quite mental, isn't it?
I know. And I said, what we're going to talk about? We've always got stuff to talk about. Always.
Oh, always. Yeah. Oh, I see Gary in the chat. Hello, Gary. How are you?
He's in the chat, is he?
He is. Look.
Well, before we go, we better get a score prediction from Gary Maloney because I've got to say, and I hate to say it, Gary is normally pretty good on score predictions. So if Gary says we're winning, then let's get excited. Gary, before we go, give us your score prediction. And also, Craig, let me ask you another question then while we're waiting for Gary. What do you expect in terms of transfers for Spurs? How many in, how many out? Because we've spoken, so often about players going out the door. Emerson Royale, Reguilon, Lo Celso possibly going out, Jed Spence. There's so many. Brian Hill is another. There's so many players that could go out the door. Are Spurs going to replace like for like? And in terms of numbers, do you expect a number of incomings the same as the outgoings?
Not necessarily, actually. I think because we had a fairly 1-0 England. Love it. Gary's just said 1-0 England to everybody listening on audio. So, and Kane's getting the goal apparently. So, if you fancy a bet on that, always bet responsibly. Don't take Gary's word for it because he has been wrong before. But Harry Kane 1-0 might be worth a punt. Not necessarily. The same amount coming in as going out because, like I say, we did have a fairly big squad. I still think the squad was too big last year, even though you wouldn't think it to look at the bench in some games with all the injuries and people away on international duties and stuff like that. Yeah. But he'll going back to what I said earlier, he'll want the right players for the right positions. And the likes of Archie Gray, you might see him covering centre midfield, at right back. So it's kind of two players rolled into one there. So you might not necessarily. If say Gill and Spence go, you might not necessarily get a winger and a wing back or defender come in. You might get one player that's a catch-all. So, but let's see. A long time left in the window. So, fingers crossed. I hope we're not doing a podcast on the 1st or 2nd of September moaning about the transfer window because that would be terrible.
We haven't had a moaning Craig Dearman on here for a while, so let that continue. Yeah.
I don't want to moan. Don't want to moan. I want it to be a good start to the season and not much to moan about.
Well, let me just say a big thank you to all of the viewers and the listeners, and also a big thank you to everybody in South Korea this week, because we have been the #1 most listened to football podcast this week in South Korea. So thank you so much for all of your incredible support. We're now up to 117,000 subscribers, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you so much to everybody who does subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the game. Enjoy the final on Sunday. Let's hope that we are all celebrating into the early hours of Monday. I'm sure that if England do lift that trophy, there won't be many people going to work on Monday. Have you already got the day off, Craig?
Do you know what's really funny? No, I haven't. But my son said to me, he said, Dad, do you know what? If we win on Sunday, it's going to be a bank holiday on Monday. I said, no. I don't think our new Prime Minister said that at all. I said, I think he's probably going to think about it. But I said, it doesn't mean to say that we're getting a bank holiday on Monday, sadly, if we win. They'll stick one in at some point, it might be, who knows when it'll be. But I said, they can't just shut the country down because we won a football match. As mental as that would be, I think that would be great. But yeah, those viewing figures as well. And it never ceases to amaze me, the countries people are watching from. And of course, to have Korea at the top of the list, then one, obviously, with your fellow countryman Sonny, we love him, we love all you, and I think if I've actually murdered this, 감사합니다, thank you for everybody that supports the channel. And if I've said that wrong, I'd really apologise. So please feel free to abuse me on social media. And it's the only word of Korean I know, but I think I learned it. So.
Well, thank you very much, and what Craig said, and we will see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs. Come on, England.
You Spurs.